Hello, everyone. My name is Royce York. I'm a member of the Compliance Department here at DLJGR. On behalf of my colleagues, Deirdre Corey, Lee Griffin, Jose Jimenez, and Gina Massey, I would like to thank the board members and executive team for taking the time to sit in on our proposal today. The goal of this presentation is to set forth the Compliance Committee's proposed monitoring and auditing plan for the upcoming year of 2018. And ultimately to get board and senior management input and approval. This year's monitoring and auditing plan is designed to ensure our billing company's commitment to legal compliance, accuracy, timeliness, and reliability. DLJGR maintains a stellar reputation as a third-party medical billing company, and the company's business success is fundamentally dependent on our clients' trust in our seamless internal quality controls in reimbursement and payment areas, as well as our unwavering data-driven commitment to fraud and abuse prevention. We believe our proposed monitoring and auditing plan is essential to our company's success, and we are seeking senior management and board approval of resources as detailed in our requested $355,000 budget for 2018 as detailed below in order to successfully implement these critical compliance components, especially in light of current business expansion initiatives that we are undergoing. I'm sure you're all well aware of the information on this slide. This basically highlights the current company profile as a third-party medical billing company, as noted here. It's also in the appendix for your reference. And as you can see, we have 4,415 employees and $123,374,000 in net profit for 2017, approximately. So here is the Compliance Committee's proposed monitoring and auditing plan for the company. We highlighted 4 risk assessments of concern, and they are improper billing, which include coding and unbundling pursuant to the RAC audit, immediate implementation of new qualified medical beneficiary, QMB, billing requirements from CMS, non-updated computer systems, and non-encrypted laptops, and also potential marketing issues as we expand and grow our business. And further down the presentation, we will discuss the cross-department risk assessments, the need to implement new monitoring and auditing protocols to address the 4 concerns, and then the rationale for the budget increases. Okay, so this chart lays out the 4 targeted areas that we have identified. The first one being privacy of personal health information, and we consider that to be the highest risk. As a company, we have started to embrace the work-at-home approach for many of our employees, and while this is an employee satisfier, it greatly increases the risk of theft as company laptops are now leaving the premises on a regular basis. Within 3 months of implementing the flexible work-at-home policy, an employee experienced a theft of their vehicle, and inside of their vehicle was a company laptop. This theft did not result in exposure of PHI, but it does illustrate that we are not immune to this type of situation. Company travel also increases the risk of a data breach due to the use of public Wi-Fi while in airports and hotels. We have been contemplating the purchasing of a new system and therefore have been reluctant to invest in upgrades to our current system, which might be something we want to look into. On our list, improper billing. Improper billing findings that reinforce our need for a monitoring auditing plan include an instance of upcoding, which was confirmed in the past 24 months through an internal investigation. And just to give you some context, there was a recent court case between Mirana versus SmithKline Beckham Clinical Labs, in which there was a settlement for more than $334 million. So this is a good example of how unbundling can be a significant financial risk. Further recent guidance issued by the CMS to implement QMB billing protocols is risky in that failure to do so will result in return claims, lost revenue, and potential loss of clients. Third on our list, new CMS requirements for qualified medical beneficiary coding are due to be implemented in the next several months. While our clients will be addressing this coding change also, we need internal controls to ensure our software is updated, our staff is trained, and we monitor instances of QMB coding failure. And our last target area is regarding marketing. In the current business climate, we are experiencing tremendous growth, As we enter into new partnerships and agreements, monitoring the conduct of the sales and marketing department must be an important aspect of our compliance program. As our account managers actively engage and manage clients in the field, we must be able to have confidence that these relationships are fully legitimate and do not place the company at legal risk for fraud and other abuses. Here's the visual to display the risk areas and potential impact to our organization used during our risk assessment process. Based on our risk assessment, we believe upcoding, unbundling, PHI loss, and QMB to be high risk. We assess marketing as mid-risk. These findings resulted from a cross-department risk assessment process utilizing previous monitoring and auditing data. Legal coding, accounting, and other departments were involved in the data review, analysis, and weighting. Risk concern levels for company-wide compliance issues were ranked using a likelihood impact risk factor calculation. This risk ranking prioritization allows for focused mitigation resource allotment in order to attain maximum cost benefits. And here's the visual that demonstrates that for you now. Okay, so what are the monitoring and auditing plan components? Well, our monitoring and auditing plan includes the types of reviews, the frequency, corrective actions, responsible departments, reporting tools, and statistical sampling. When implementing monitoring and auditing practices, we hope with sufficient resources to provide real-time and retrospective review audits. By looking back at prior operations, this team wants to make sure that there were not prior violations to policies and practices. Holding concurrent audits establishes a real-time review of how DLJGR can identify and address any potential findings that might violate policies and practices. If infractions are found, we can interject, correct, and update how policies and procedures are performed. This compliance team will monitor routinely to assure compliance practices are followed, dissemination of practices are followed, or training, aka, and whether discipline needs to be enforced. Ways of applying such surveillance will be through following trends of practices, engaging with frontline providers, management, patient care, and so on, about how things are done to spot potential areas of improvements. By creating a culture of accountability is our main goal. Okay, so let's be clear. Existing compliance program monitoring will continue with ongoing dynamic evaluation and response. The following monitoring tools are utilized as appropriate: on-site visits, interviews, testing, billing staff on knowledge, questionnaires, peer reviews, documentation reviews, trend analysis, exit interviews, and hotline issues, and trends statistical sampling. As recommended by the OIG, currently entails annual review of a valid statistical sample of claims, both before and after billing is submitted, by a qualified expert in applicable coding process. Additional detailed information regarding the 4 targeted risk areas is shown above. Please take a look. Please note that the particular types of review are specific to the different departments that are associated with, but they basically deal with statistical sampling, retrospective audit, prospective monitoring in terms of billing issues, and in terms of marketing, we would look at expense report monitoring. We would look at compensatory agreement reviews, account-specific questionnaires, and re-education. And the corrective action would be decided by the department for which was doing the monitoring. And it would depend on which department was looking at that. It would definitely include re-education, and it would follow the company policy in terms of dealing with corrective actions for employees. So let's take a closer look at PHI risk rationale. As our risk assessment showed, we have a high risk of data loss through theft and cyber attacks. Every PHI loss needs to be reported to the Office of Health and Human Services, and for those affecting greater than 500 people, we need to report immediately and issue a public notice that this has occurred. This can lead to serious reputational harm and result in non-renewal of current contracts as well as loss of new contracts. And as you can see from some of the bullet points that we put up here, potential fines of up to $1.5 million. So this is a significant problem, and we need to tackle it with a strong auditing and monitoring program. Okay, next up we have improper billing risk rationale. Recent regulatory action from the federal government has displayed that reducing fraud is a top priority, particularly upcoding. The financial risk of upcoding violations can be huge. For example, hospital staffing provider Team Health Holdings paid $60 million plus interest to settle allegations that its hospital group practice submitted upcoded bills to the government-funded programs such as Medicare and Medicaid. Through an internal investigation, we have identified at least one instance of upcoding in the last 24 months. The risk of reoccurrence, coupled with the huge potential for financial losses if violations are uncovered, has led us to believe that upcoding is a high-risk vulnerability to our organization. Now let's take a look at unbundling. Unbundling is the practice of unraveling medical services such as laboratory testing, grouping, medical service bundles, and/or diagnostic services being broken further to maximize reimbursement return from any medical payer. Most TPA have contracted payment agreements, and in these circumstances, providers break down services instead of being bundled for the care provided to have a higher payment from the insurer. An example of this, and we mentioned this previously in one of the slides, was a case between the United States, Mariana versus SmithKline Beckman Clinical Labs settled for more than $334 million for defrauding multiple health insurance programs. Such cases evidence extreme fraudulent practices which could have been deterred with appropriate monitoring and auditing programs in place, similar to the one that we are proposing today. Okay, next up we have QMB risk rationale, QMB return codes. So CMS has issued guidance that as of July 2nd, 2018, healthcare companies must implement key measures to ensure compliance with qualified Medicare beneficiary QMB billing requirements. They need to use HIPAA eligibility transaction systems, they need to use CMS eligibility verification systems, and they need to use the provider RA to identify beneficiaries' QMB status and exemption from cost sharing prior to billing. We have assigned a high level of risk to the CMS directive to implement QMB billing protocols, and that failure to do so will result in return claims, lost revenue, and a potential loss of clients due to not only the failure to stay up to date with CMS requirements, but also the severe impact on client revenue cycles. To implement this directive, we will work with IT to create a new database protocol and then train staff on these new QMB billing requirements. We believe that prospective monitoring after new software implementation and retraining should initially include documentation review, on-site visits, and questionnaires, testing, as well as testing of staff. After a month-long rollout, random monthly sampling will monitor QMB protocol implementation with additional audits monitoring as warranted. Okay, next up we have marketing risk rationale. The regulation that specifically affects the marketing department would be what's known as the anti-kickback statute, or the AKS. And the implications of the anti-kickback statute are not as apparent for third-party billing companies as they are for other entities within the healthcare system. However, the AKS holds relevance in a number of areas that directly involve the sales and marketing department, specifically regarding financial incentives, joint venture associations, and discounts and gifts. In terms of financial incentives, as a third-party billing company that is reimbursed as a percentage of our clients' revenue, we face a high level of scrutiny by the OIG. Specifically, the OIG finds such companies at high risk for upcoding violations. And this demonstrates the crossover from both billing fraud and anti-kickback violations that is somewhat unique to third-party billers. Consider the following case in which the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General penalized a medical billing company for submitting false claims for services that were never performed on behalf of an OBGYN. In this case, there was in fact a compensation agreement between the billing company and the physician's office, and both were working in tandem to defraud Medicare. The collusion between the two parties elevated the punitive damages due to the additional AKS violations. Again, this highlights the importance of maintaining strong ethical and legal relationships with our clients at all levels of the regulatory spectrum. Next up, joint ventures. Joint ventures are usually high-level undertakings. They usually extend beyond the realm of marketing and sales, but they do have an impact. As a third-party biller, we should be vigilant in our association with clients that engage in these types of endeavors, as we may find ourselves entangled in the resulting AKS litigation if those two parties were engaged in fraud or abuse. Next up, we have discounts and gifts. The OIG stipulates that discounts for professional courtesy are not appropriate unless the total fee is discounted or reduced. The OIG warns that billing companies should not confer gifts on the client provider because it could raise anti-kickback concerns. However, the federal AKS applies only to payments and inducements for business that are reimbursed under state and federal healthcare programs. Conflicting information regarding this topic should be of concern to DLJGR. The fact that OIG has specifically stated that third-party billers should not provide discounts and gifts, coupled with the nature of our reimbursement structure, should cause us to err on the side of caution. Monitoring the sales and marketing department for adherence to the AKS makes sound business sense considering the following risks. Civil penalties for violating the AKS may include penalties of up to $74,792 per kickback, plus 3 times that amount of the kickback. Criminal penalties for violating the AKS may include fines, imprisonment, or both. If a billing violation has occurred and it was shown that a willful agreement was in place between the client and the billing company, then AKS penalties would be rendered in addition to the improper billing damages. Okay, so just a quick recap: potential impacts of identified risks. Legal risks of compromised PHI result in $1.5 million in fines. Improper billing and QMB coding practices may result in claim denials, rejections, loss of revenue, revenue cycle disruption, CMS exclusion, RAC audits, serious future violations, large litigation settlements and expenses. Marketing during business expansion, exposure to fraud and other abuses. All 4 risks lead to loss of reputation and ultimately loss of clients. And this program seeks to address all of those issues and give us peace of mind. Okay, so the question is, what do we need to get the job done? Our proposed budget for the monitoring and auditing plan includes adding 2 new compliance specialists and 1 coding expert, as well as in-service training time. We expect the total amount added to the proposed budget would be $150,000, bringing the total compliance budget to $350,000. We believe the increased cost of implementing a monitoring and auditing program, as identified here, is well worth the protections that it will provide us in preventing fines, loss of reputation, and business relationships, as well as additional administrative responsibility if unlawful behavior was detected due to a lack of sufficient compliance resources. In conclusion, this report has highlighted the serious legal and business impacts of 4 priority risk compliance areas, as well as the targeted monitoring and auditing controls needed to address these concerns. The Compliance Committee believes that effective and up-to-date compliance measures at DLJGR are critical to maintaining strong relationships with our provider clients who have come to rely on us. Approval of our proposed budget of $350,000 is essential for our compliance department to address this potential exposure. The more effective we are at maintaining compliance, the more both we and our clients benefit. Accurate, reliable, accountable. DLJGR's company motto reflects the enduring commitment to a peerless company and compliance program. The following 6 slides encompass the Appendix A and our valued resources. I would like to thank my colleagues at the Compliance Department for all the hard work and effort that they put into this proposal. Thank you.